Okay. So basically, God had a certain structure for a lot of things. There's some structures that are still present today, and they include the families. So basically, the husbands are in charge of the household. So the wife has to submit to the husband. Then the older siblings, then the younger siblings.
All right, yeah, so we also have a verse here. If you guys want to read it, Ephesians 5,
Okay.
24, and then, oh, Rachel, if you want to read it, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So wives, submit to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is first commandments with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy a long life on the earth. Ephesians 5:22, 24, and 6:1.
Okay, great, thank you. Now it's Jeffrey's turn.
I don't know.
Yeah, Jeffrey's definitely there. Sam, can you hear me? I mean, unless they have the audio turned down.
Yeah, hello.
Is Jeffrey there?
Yes.
Okay. Well, can you get him to read his part?
Okay. Oh, wait, I need to read my part? Yeah. Oh, shoot. Okay. Christ, church, people, husband, wife, older siblings, younger siblings. Christ is the head of the church. Husband are the head of their wife. Children submit to their parents. Husbands love your wives, just as Christian loves the church and give himself up for their. This
Structure.
The structure of doesn't mean that a group of one layer can
Abuse
the groups below them. This is explained in this verse, which tell husbands to love their wives as Jesus loved the church.
Good.
All right, great, thank you. So basically what we're talking about here is, I'm pretty sure Rachel already said this, yeah. So basically in any structure, as in our daily lives with our family, there is God's like structure of authority, and that is evident here with this hierarchy. And then this verse here also says, like, maybe people will say, for example, husbands can just have like the wives can just be abused or anything. This is not actually true, right? So just as Christ doesn't abuse the church, husbands or any other hierarchy doesn't abuse the people below them, right? Okay, Audrey's next.
Church leaders. Within the church, the leadership of pastors, elders, and teachers are essential for the health of the body of Christ. Believers are to honor and respect leaders and to submit to one another and walk in humility. Instead of speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head and is Christ. From him the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each I'm lost. As each part does its work. Ephesians 4:15-16. Have confidence in your leaders and submit to their authority because they keep watch over you, those who must give an account. Hebrews 13:17.
So this part, Jamin, can you briefly describe this part? There's a lot of tech content here.
Yeah, so this is talking more about the church and the church members. We didn't really, I don't really remember, but yeah, we didn't really elaborate on this because probably because the verses are pretty self-explanatory, like within the church. Pastors, elders, leaders, pastors, elders, and teachers are essential, right? And then believers are to honor and respect the leaders, right? This is basically like the hierarchy, right? The structure of the church is how the church functions, right? You have the normal churchgoers and you have the people who kind of run the church, right? So we can also see this in like businesses and schools and whatever, right? We see this everywhere. Instead of speaking the truth in love, we will grow and become in every respect the major body of He who is the head, right? So we're basically trying to grow to be Christ, right? As the church is basically Christ's body, right? We're trying to be like that, right? So that's what I pretty sure that's what this is talking about. And then also like trust your church leaders, trust the people who are above you, right? Because obviously there's a reason they're above you, right? So submit to their authority and listen to them. Yeah, okay. Can we keep going? Yeah, okay. All right, Enoch.
So principle of submission to authority. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power above God. The powers that be are ordained from God. Romans chapter 13, verses 1. God has all power and authority. God is the king. This is the reason we have to submit and accept his authority. If we have a king, we have to obey him. God is the king of all creation, so we obey him. There's no point to defy God since he has power over all things. It may seem in the moment that we are doing something that we want, but we will reap the consequences in the future. When you hear many people praying, they will thank God before starting. This means that they are submitting to his authority. Jesus said, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. Luke chapter 22, verses 42. This means that Jesus is submitting to the Father.
Okay, Enoch, can I get you to elaborate a bit more about this stuff? Just what you think about it.
Submission to authority. Yes.
Okay, so
It
what
goes
about
all the way back to the Bible. Yes. And we should submit to God because he is the king. And if we have a king, we are his subjects and we should obey him, which is a feudalistic thing. Yeah.
so yeah, we basically wrote this. Forgot who came up with this. Okay, maybe it was Rachel, but if you have a king, right? Imagine a king 1,000 years ago, or even like 500 years ago, right? You have this king. He's the head of the whole country, right? And there's these really like terrible kings sometimes, or there's really good. But the point is, right? If you go up to king, and then, I mean, if at that time, right, you disobeyed the law in some way, and then they found out, and then you were sent before the king, right? Like imagine what he would do to you, right? Because the king is obviously like at that point the king in the country was literally viewed. The Egyptians thought the king was like God, right? So imagine like that, except God is the king of everything, right? And like imagine how scared you would be, or like to go before a king, right? Like from 1,000 years ago, and just stand before him, right? Because he can easily just chop your head off if he wants to. Like you do one bad thing, and then he'll kill you, right? And that's actually true. People like stuff like that happen. But obviously God isn't like that. But you know what I mean, right? God can do whatever, right? He controls all creation. He's the king of all creation, so everything has to obey him. Okay. And then like even Jesus said, right? Because we know the hierarchy of the Father, the Son, and then the Holy Spirit. So Jesus says this verse, right? Jesus knows that I mean he doesn't want to be pinned to the cross and die, right? But he says, if you're willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. So this is his submission to the Father, right? Even Jesus submits, and like this just shows what we should do, right? What little can we do if he can submit like this? We can do our little things in our life, right? Okay, can we move on? Yeah. Okay. All right, Anna, your turn.
So what people did, a few hundred years ago, many people would build large and very expensive churches as a form of submission to God, along with many other things. And fasting, which Jesus fasted 40 days in the wilderness, which I don't think any of us can do, and sacrifices, which is like for respect and stuff, and sacrifices of animals, and they also offered up food. Abraham decided to even sacrifice Isaac because God told him to.
Okay, yeah, this is worded a bit weird, but yeah, he didn't actually sacrifice Isaac, but he was going to, right? And also, if you search up like a normal person would die when they don't eat for like 20 days, I'm pretty sure. So it's already, this is like another miracle that Jesus performed, right? But this is like another way of submission to God, right? It's like his spirit is way more than like earthly things, right? So like think about this, right? If you don't eat, if you go past your or if you skip lunch or something, right? Imagine how hungry you would be, right? And Jesus had to do this. So yeah, that's another form of submission to authority, right?
One comment, point number 3, sacrifice of the animals. You put down here offer up of the food. God doesn't need food.
Yeah.
Sacrifice of an animal was basically a propitiation for the sin. Okay,
Yeah.
so correction is that. Okay, so God is different than all the other idols. Other idols, the Chinese idols you see in restaurants and stuff, you always see some food right in front of them, right? That's our God is not like that. He doesn't need food from anybody. Right? Everything is given to us by him. So he obviously doesn't need to be fulfilled by the food that's offered. But actually that correction we need to clarify, right? The sacrificing of the animal was for the propitiation of sin, right? Basically to remove the sin, right? Or to cover the sins up.
Yeah.
So that's why there was a sacrifice of animal, the shedding of the animal blood. But the food part, no.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Sam, your turn. What did I do? Okay. Sam, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. One heard that 3 large enemies were coming to attack him. He decided to do what most people wouldn't. Instead of mobilizing his army and trying to defend, the whole nation turned to God and asked for help. Then God made an army of enemies turn on each other, and the nations was saved. Should I read that? or
This one?
I can just pass it.
You can
Yeah.
pass it. Oh, also, this, yeah. Also, like another form of submission is people who serve the Lord full time. Yeah.
Oh, people who serve the Lord full time. So,
We'll just put this here. Okay. Yeah, we didn't put the verse here, but you guys should definitely read this. It's pretty incredible. Like one of his stories. Like this guy, right? As Sam just said, there's 3 large armies coming at you. He wasn't prepared, right? Because they were like sneak attacking him. I mean, like most people, right? In certain situations, even though they can't do anything about it, they're in like a state of denial, right? They still try to do everything they can instead of just letting go, right? And turning to God. But when you reach that state, this is what happens, right? God intervenes, and like this is a form of submission, right? Like Jehoshaphat here knows he can't do anything about it, right? So he submits, and then this is what happens, right? If that makes sense. Okay. Who's reading this part? All right, Justin, can you read this part?
Teachers have authority over their students. Principals have authority over teachers and students. School board has authority over schools. The government has authority over school board. Work. Employees obey their boss and also the government and police. Bosses obey their bosses until the CEO. Sports and teams. Players' members have to listen to the captain. Players and their captains have to obey the coach.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that's just a list of structure of authority that's present in our daily lives. Okay, who's doing this? All right, Evan.
So basically, if we submit to God, his authority and will is the best possible situation that we can hope for. But the reason we don't do that is because we're blinded by sin, and that's what pulls us away from doing that, from submitting to him. But an example of submission to God is when Jehoshaphat and all of his nation decided to submit to God and let him handle the battle, so they won. And we submit to authority to maintain order and prevent sin, because that authority comes from God.
All right, and yeah, that's all we have.
So you guys did find a lot of information, and then you gave some examples of how, the examples that you think there are kind of examples of submission. I think some of them are quite good. I guess the whole point of this specific topic is realizing that God is a God of order and authority, and also with his creation, everything that he's created, everything falls in a proper order, right? This topic is important to us because if you look at society today, you can see disordered situation all over the place, at work, at school, even society. They may teach the students to stand up for themselves, which in some sense is good, but sometimes it can be like a little bit too much, right? And also with like family, right? And we have situations where in a family, a lot of times the parents treat their children like almost like they're more superior, and they do everything that the children or the kids want, right? So in that kind of sense, you can see there's some abnormalities, right, in society, in the family today. But you have to realize that God who created the universe, our God, his principle is that everything is in an orderly way. Why this is important, because we will see that in our next group, we're going to talk about the rebellion that took place, right? And the rebellion is after rebellion, everything was in chaos, right? So I think the first group did a really good a very good work of giving the examples of especially what's applicable to us today, right? So students, right, at school, yes, we need to be, we need to respect. Respect is maybe a proper word, right? Because you respect, then you also obey in a way, right? So those two kind of go hand in hand. So in school, whether you like the teacher or not, right? You have to realize God put that teacher above you, right? And just the fact that that person is above you in terms of authority, we need to have a proper submission to that person. So whether or not you like that person or not, sometimes you may think the teacher is awful, but however, regardless of that, feelings aside, God still put that person right there before you. And the same thing with our parents, right? Sometimes we may have some conflicts with our parents, right? And then sometimes, young people today in today's society, they teach you to, stand up for yourself. You have to fight for yourself, that type of philosophy, right? But you have to realize in the household, your parents, they have authority over you because God put them in that position of power, right? God put them in that position. And the Bible tells us very clearly that children, we obey our parents. And that is actually a commandment with a promise, right? What is the promise, right? You guys read it, right? So that you may live long on this earth, right? So this is a pretty serious verse, right? So, as I think what's most applicable to us is young people, when you do have conflicts with parents, right? Remember this verse, right? Just beware of what we say to our parents, the words that we use sometimes. I know some kids can use really harsh words, right? You got to be reminded, right? As we are, children of God, right? And God ordained our parents to put them in that position. So it's something that we need to learn to obey, right? So I think that's very good. Let me just see if I do have a couple of verses, and I think maybe you catch most of them. I'm just going to share my screen, okay? A couple of verses take back relating to submission. Here, let's see. Okay, here, let's talk about slaves, right? Slaves obey and everything. I mean, obviously we're not slaves today, but I do work for I work for someone, right? So obviously I'm not a slave, but I am an employee in the company. I have my bosses, right, that I have to work with. So here it's kind of related to that too, right? Slaves obey everything those who are your earthly master, not by way of eye service as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. So you realize here what's driving this is that you don't look at, because, whether you like this person or not, whether, this person is a pleasant person, you obey that person because why? Fearing of the Lord, right? So we have to realize, right? God put this person above you, and you work with that person in a proper way, in a nice, respectful way, and you have to learn how to respect that person because of why you're doing this, because you have a fear for God. You know that God ordained that. So anyways, that's all I want to say here. First Peter, additionally, sorry, another verse, I think that's good. Likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourself, all of you, with humility toward one another, for God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So I think these are really useful verses for us to remember and how to live our life properly on this earth. Okay, so that's one thing to always be remembered of.